this is Master Niranjan Navalgund and I welcome you to the third episode of Your Game, Our Analysis. We received a record number of entries again and this time I have chosen a great number of games and let's get started. So I already have the first game. You can see that it is Nishil Jain's game today, the first game, and let's go ahead. So as usual I will be looking at the games and at the end I will be giving you some tips, and yes, I will also be looking at the comments as and when they come. And yeah, please like the stream. Arnav is right. So let's look at the first game. This is a game of Nishil Jain. Nishil sent us this game and he won this game very quickly. So let's get started. He played e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, and if black plays knight f6, we call this the 4 knights because there are 4 knights present in the game, all developed, but that was not meant to be, and here black went f6, which is a mistake. The pawn on f7 is a very sensitive pawn, and the square itself, and it's not good to move that pawn unless necessary. And in this position, a move like this should be punished by a break in the center. So Nishil, you should have played d4, which would have given you a very good position because this pawn on f6 looks very meek in the position. For example, after ed4, knight d4, you can already see that bishop c4 can permanently take away any castling opportunities, and it also gives you all these queen h5 kind of ideas. So in this position, Nishil, you should have simply played d4. But you went for a4. This is a pawn move which is not really necessary in the game. So such pawn moves have to be avoided in my opinion. And after a4, black played a5. So in a way black has returned the favor by not really developing the piece, which is not right. He should have played something like bishop c5 to prevent d4, but he played a5 and then Nishil went for h4. So h4 again is an unnecessary pawn move which should have been avoided. But finally after h5, Nishil plays bishop c4. This is the bright side of the story now, that he finally gets his bishop out. And after knight h6, he went knight h2. I understand that his threat is to play queen takes h5, which I would call a 1 rupee or a 10 paisa trap. But if you expect your opponent to play the best move, I don't think knight h2 is a good idea. You should play in the center. You should play d4. Because after knight h2, black can defend that threat with g6 or even play a move like knight f7. But he fell for your trap. The good part about this game is that you won the game because of queen takes h5 followed by queen takes f7 mate. But if you want me to give you an honest opinion, I think you should avoid playing moves like this unnecessarily. Don't go back with your pieces unless that's the only way to go forward, in the position. So after knight h2, you are relying on this trap, but if you want to be a good player, you should expect your opponent to play the best move, and that's the reason you must play the best move yourself. So good that you won this game, and it's very good that you sent us this game, and your game was selected in the number generator. So congrats on that. So what are the tips I have for you, Nishil? Here are the tips for you. Number 1, no unnecessary pawn moves. Prioritize the development of pieces above all. Don't put your pieces to passive squares. Avoid retreats unless forced or necessary. But with point 2, what I mean is your move knight h2, which is what you should not be doing. And then always expect your opponent to play the best move, which is what I have already shared. So those were the 3 tips from my side. I hope you will put them to use in your games. A good moment for me to check what's happening in the chat. Hi Rakesh, thanks for joining. Yeah, Arnav, 100 comments would be great. Mayank, hello. Hi Debashish and hi Devesh. Now let's go with the second game. Let's see who we have. So the second winner is, let's reveal, it's Pranav Rajesh. So Pranav sent us this game, and in this game after e4, e5, knight f3, bishop d6, he played bishop c4, very good. After knight h6, he went for knight c3, again very good, I like this move. And after castles, he played bishop, his opponent played bishop b4, and you could see that there is a free pawn here which he could have simply taken, but he played d3. Fair enough, still okay. After bishop c3, bc3, d6, in this position I think whenever you get a chance you must develop with tempo, because in this position this bishop can come to g5 and attack the queen, keeping black busy because he has to defend the queen, and at the same time you get your piece out. So if you compare this with a normal developing move, I think it makes sense to develop in such a way that it keeps your opponent busy but you are getting way ahead in your development. So bishop g5 is what I would have done, or even bishop takes h6, shatter the pawn structure if possible, because then gh6 these pawns look very sad. So this was a good chance to do that, but after bishop e6 he played bishop e6, which is fine. But after fe6, now I think at least now bishop h6 should have been played, but he went for bishop g5, queen e8, queen e2, queen h5, and now he played bishop into h6, but now it's not really that useful because black is not forced to take with g pawn. He can simply take with the queen and say that okay, I have got a good position, now knight will come to d7 and black is very fine. But after d4, ed4, cd4, knight c6, this position is slightly better for white because he has a good center control. Rook a b1 could come. Again, developing with tempo. By playing rook a b1, you are not only developing your piece, but you are keeping opponent busy with the threats. So I think again here also rook a b1 was good. But you went for d5, which is not necessary. And after d5, your opponent should have taken ed5, ed5 and got his development, like he could have developed his rook with a tempo with rook a e8, which he missed. So this game was all about missed tempi, like white had the chance to get those extra moves, and black also had the chance to do that, but he did not. But after d5, knight e5, knight e5, d5, again we reach a very critical position. In this position, I think you can simply play queen c4, put more pressure on the pawn on e6, because after queen c4, let's say he takes your pawn, and then there is this queen takes d5 check, and then the pawn is falling on e5. And if he doesn't take, let's say if he plays something like rook e8, then you can also see that these are all weak. You can play rook a b1, maybe attack another pawn. And then this is also slightly weak because the queen feels out of the game suddenly. So these were some of the good chances you had, but you took d6 for now, and this is questionable because now you see your pawns don't really feel good. They are having, white has 3 pawn islands, and whereas black has 3 pawn islands, but he is very happy because you see these pawns are healthy in comparison with these 2 pawns. So after rook a b1, when you finally got rook a b1, b6, you got this position, and here after queen c4, rook c4, your opponent was now threatening to capture the pawn on f2. All you had to do was just a quick blunder check to see what's happening. If you had simply played f3, you would have good chances, I think, in this game. You can now play rook d7 or rook d5. It's not too late to say that you are not playing for advantage. You can still play for advantage because of this e5 pawn, which is isolated. It's a king's isolated pawn, if you say, but you played rook d7, and this is where I think you faltered and lost a very important pawn after rook f2, because now you cannot take this pawn as rook f1 is a checkmate. So you had to play h3 to give the flight square for your king. And then after h6, rook c3, after this it's, of course, again, rook f3 was bad because when you're down in material, you should not trade. And if you play rook g3 in this situation, there is always rook at f7. So the threats are not really that strong for white. So your mistake was giving that pawn on f2, which is very important. And then after this, there was really no chance. So what are some of the tips I have for you? Alright. Develop pieces with tempo whenever you get a chance. If you get a chance to shatter your opponent's king side structure, consider it seriously, because there is bishop into h6 in this game, which you missed. And your move should be helping you, not your opponent. Don't help your opponent to get rid of the weakness. What I mean with this is that in this position, after knight e5, d5, this is a weak pawn. This is a weak pawn. By playing d6, you are actually helping your opponent, which you should not be doing. Don't help your opponent to get rid of the weakness that he or she has. So you should rely on the weaknesses that your opponent has and try to even provoke more. Instead, by d6, you are helping your opponent, which is what you should be avoiding. then more pawn islands is equal to more trouble. So have make sure that you have very few pawn islands, because as the pawn islands increase, your demand increases. You have to take care of that pawn, you have to take care of this pawn, and this keeps on increasing. And avoid exchanges when you are down in the position, as I mentioned already, and focus on opponents' immediate and long term threats. Why? I mentioned this because in this game the long term threat was of course to go into a winning rook endgame, but the short term threat here, after he attacked with rook a f8, this is a threat that you must notice immediately, because if you play rook d7, you are paving way for another threat, which is rook f1. So you must develop this habit to notice the threat of your opponent. This can take you long way. With your games, I see that you have made some strategic errors, and those are possible to improve. So please make sure that you study some games and practice this spotting of threats in your games. So those were the tips for you. Let's quickly go on to the next game. Meanwhile, let me see what's happening in the chat. Yeah, you want me to explain pawn islands. Alright, so pawn islands are those clump of pawns, let's say in this position that I have. These pawns are connected. You can see that this pawn a7, b6, c5, they are all connected. This is one pawn island. But this e5 pawn has no neighbor. So this is the second pawn island. And then this is the third pawn island, g7, h7. So black has three pawn islands, which means these pawns will require support. For example, this pawn on e5 will require support whenever there is an attack. But you cannot say the same about c5 pawn, because the c5 pawn is protected by b6 and b6 is protected by a7. So it makes sense to have fewer pawn islands so that your opponent has fewer targets to attack. So I hope that clears your question. Now let's go on to the next game. This game was sent to us by Adokshaj Deshpande, I think, and it's a very nice game. Let's look at this game. Let me flip the board. Yeah, so I have this game here. Okay, so in this game he played the peg defense, and here after bishop c4, bishop g7, h3, castles, knight f3, there is a very important motif here. Maybe I will give a chance to the chat to answer this. It's black to play. What would you do as black? So I'm just waiting to see what your answers are, because this is a very important theme in playing such positions. The theme here is when the knight is on c3 and bishop is on c4, the pawns on e4 and d4, you have this very important thing, which is very rare. I mean, at a top level they easily see it, but at the basic level this is a theme that is not really used many times. Yeah, Sandeep Maheshwari gets the answer. That's right. It is knight takes e4. Why do we play this? Why is it important to play knight takes e4? Now I'll tell you. A7 pawn is, let's say, 10 rupees. Okay, this is 20 rupees. Then this is 30 rupees. Now the central pawns, we give them 50 rupees each, and then again 30 rupees, 20 rupees, and 10 rupees. So if you see it that way, the central pawns are very important. Here, black has a chance to eliminate one of the central pawns of white, and why not do that? So knight takes e4 is the best move in the position, because after knight takes e4 you have this pawn fork, and then after bishop d3 you can take the knight and then have a very nice position, because now this pawn can give us an idea to attack. For example, black can immediately play c5 and weaken this pawn and put more pressure on this pawn. Something like c3 would result into cd4, and this is not something white would like. So knight takes e4, the best response sometimes is bishop takes f7, but that's okay. You can play rook takes f7, knight e4 and play d5. This position is fine and playable. Black has good chances. Black also has double bishop advantage, which you must take into account. So, this is a move that Adokshaj had to play, but he did not. He went for c5, which is not the best move in the position because white is giving a chance to play knight e4. Why not do it? That's my question. You must do this, knight takes e4. After c5 castles, black can now, actually here white should have played d5, but after castles he can now play cd4 and say that okay, I am safe now. And then we reach a very important position again. After knight d4, he should have simply played knight c6, new move, new piece. Develop a new piece with every new move you make, because here in this position, you are getting a very normal dragon, but by playing e5, you are mixing a lot of things. You are mixing these Sveshnikov, Kalashnikov ideas with the dragon, which is not really good because d6 is a backward pawn here. And after knight db5, this pawn is very weak because it has no neighboring pawn to support itself, and then this pawn will require a piece to support it. That means you have to invest at least 3 points in the defense, which is not really in the budget if you see it that way. So here after e6 you give up the pawn, which to some extent is a practical choice, but knight e8 is objectively the best move to sit tight and defend this pawn. But after e6, there was this very important position in your game which I am coming to. Your opponent blundered here after b5. He should have simply taken knight takes c8 and he would have very good game. After queen c8 he can play bishop b3 plus minus clearly. But he blundered, he played knight takes f7, which is a blunder. And then you played queen d1, okay, rook d1, and now not rook f7. This is a very simple move to make. Let's see if the chat gets it. So after knight f7, waiting to see. Yeah, hi Ajay, hi Prajwal, Subodh, Akash, good to see you here. Yeah, Manal is right, just bc4 and it's game over. After bc4 you are simply getting a piece, and knight e5 has to be played, and then you can play knight takes e4. Black is doing very good. But after queen takes d1, rook takes d1, you went for rook f7. Now you have put your rook into a pin, but also the bishop on c8 is undefended, so rook d8 check, and then this is gone. And now white is having commandable advantages. No need to even look further. But to my surprise, your opponent blundered an exchange. I went further and saw that after rook c7, your opponent played rook takes b8. But after rook h7, unfortunately, this is not easy to defend. And after rook b6, white is winning. So that was what I had to say about your game, and what are the tips I have for you. Let's look at that. Yeah, I see a lot of correct answers. Yes. So tip for Ashutosh. Sorry, not Ashutosh, it was Adokshaj. Study typical plans, traps, motives, ideas of the openings you play, because if you are playing peg defense, you should know that this knight takes e4 is a typical idea. This is more important than studying the opening theory itself. Then you must do a blunder check as soon as your opponent makes move. I have given you some prompt questions which can help you. Are any of my pieces hanging? Are my opponent's pieces hanging? Does my opponent have a dangerous check at his disposal? Why I am mentioning this is, in this situation when you played b5, and then here when you played b5 and then knight f7, this is your chance to calculate and see which of the opponent's pieces are hanging. You played queen d1 check, that's correct, but after rook d1 you must see, should I take the knight or should I take the bishop? Of course you should have taken the bishop. So this is what I mean by blunder check. Ask yourself what are the pieces that are hanging, and that will help you to play the best move, or at least get you closer towards making that correct move. And solve tactical positions consistently and try to calculate and analyze without moving the pieces. I think that is one thing you can try doing. Like take a book or any chess book or any game, but take a position and then sit with it, but don't move the pieces while you are calculating. Go through the game but don't move, so that it increases your ability to visualize further and then see how far you can go with the game. It's important to do this consistently. Don't expect immediate results, that you're doing for 2 hours today and the third hour you want to play like Beth Harmon, but you get the gist. So try to do this visualization exercises and analyze without moving the pieces on the physical chess set. That's my recommendation for you. With that, I think it's time to go to the next game. Alright, what's happening in the chat? Yes, Rakesh is right. Please consider subscribing to our channel, because we are doing this for you and it's your game. Thanks Rakesh for sticking around. And yes, Devesh, I have done my job of picking games randomly. So we have this random number generator which does all the picking. So if it's your day and if it's your turn to come here, then definitely your game will also come. Let's go and now get to Chinmay's game. So Chinmay sent us this game, and this is a game which he played against Captain Jack, and he was black. He played e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, cd4, knight d4. Now in this position, he made a very big mistake. It doesn't look like that initially, but it's a statistical error. Here you should not really take the knight on d4, because it's allowing the opponent's queen to come and control very important squares in the center. The queen is doing nothing right now, but by playing knight d4, you are actually bringing your opponent's pieces to play. You are helping your opponent. This is what you should not do. There are many systems here. e5 is Kalashnikov, g6 is accelerated dragon, knight f6 has possibilities to go into Sveshnikov, queen b6 is Grivas Sicilian. So there are so many moves. e6 can lead to Taimanov or Paulson or Khan. So in such situation, you should not play a move like knight d4. This is the first thing I noticed. And after queen d4, e6, c4, knight d7, knight c3, a6, bishop g5, f6, bishop e3, knight c6, queen e2, bishop b4, a3, bishop e7, bishop e2. In this position, it makes sense to castle. The position is already passive because of the mistake that I already pointed out. But when you are already down, it is high time to stick with basic fundamentals. You must castle as early as possible in this game. Otherwise, is a danger to your king. You played d6, which is an unnecessary pawn move, I think, because in this position, it's high time that you castle. If you are afraid of c5, don't be. I think already your position is bad. The good thing here is you play castles, because if you play castle and then he goes c5, then at least you have something to hang on to. Like you can play a move like queen a5, because b4 is not coming because of knight b4. But you went d6, and after rook d1, at least now you should have castled, but you went for e5. So I see that you invested a lot of time on the pawn moves, and in the return you are actually weakening a lot of squares. By playing e5, you are inviting the knight to come to d5, and when the knight comes to d5, the bishop will come to b6 and exploit your position even further. So this is a tendency that a lot of players have, that by every move you make, you are actually helping your opponent indirectly. So this is a psychology you must understand, and ask yourself whether the move that you are playing is benefiting you or your opponent. Very important question to ask, especially when you are playing games. And after bishop d7, this position is lost completely. Bishop is coming to b6, as I mentioned, and there was very little to play after that. Now he sacrificed the exchange because he had a very nice position. So I wouldn't say that it's a mistake, but anyway, this is lost after that. So what are some of the tips I have for you, Chinmay? So here are your tips. That don't exchange pieces unnecessarily because you played knight takes d4. Hello Yashas, stay here. You will see. And yeah, in this position, the tips for Chinmay are that don't exchange pieces unnecessarily, develop pieces, castle early. That should be the motto. Avoid unnecessary pawn moves. and try to develop pieces to the squares in which they have some scope, because you see in your games all your pieces were in the first rank and they did not really have any scope. Even this bishop before bishop e7 did not really help. And then every pawn move is a committal move, because you see you played e5, you played d6, f6 was necessary, but still I would suggest that you don't make those pawn moves as part of your thinking method. So be very careful, because pawn moves are expensive moves. And of course, don't take knight takes d4. Unnecessary exchanges should be avoided. And with that, time for another game. Let's go to the fifth game, which is a game between Abhay and A Bhattacharya. So Abhay centers this game, and let's flip the board, because it says Abhay. Abhay played e4, e5, d4, d5, c4, bishop f5. This is called the Baltic defense, and once Paul Keres also employed this, I think, more than once. Thank you, Bharat. And let's stick to the game again. Knight f3, e6, knight c3, c6, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, h6. In this position, he went for bishop d3, which is fine. And now, if your style is attacking, then the move that you have chosen, which is triple O, I think is fine. But if you ask me generally, then I think castles is fair enough in this position. Just castle and then maybe play for e4, it's fine. But you went for triple O, and after knight bd7, you went for h4. So it was clear that your intention was to attack in this game, which I understand. Your opponent played b6, rook at g1, rook c8, g4. All this is fine. And now, after g5 in this position, what I can see is that your attack has been successful, because there is a pawn hook here. So if not for that pawn hook, then maybe g4 is not really that dangerous, but it's all working for your good because of this hook. And then he went and castle, which is wrong, because he should have simply taken dc4. Like they say that an attack on the flank should be met with counter in the center. So here maybe dc4 followed by b5 would have given a chance to your opponent to play, because then you're initiating some play on the queen side. But by playing castles, it's like walking into fire. After castles, you finished off him with the g5, which is very good. And then after knight f4, it's just made in 2. I think the chat can reveal the answer easily. I'm just going to give this chance to the chat to tell me where exactly is the mate. So let's see what you have. Again, Mrinal is right, Achyuta is also right. So that's what happened in this game. Now, usually I would suggest that you send your games which you have lost, because there is a lot to learn from that. But Abhay has sent his win, and I have some suggestions for him as well. So Abhay, analyze your wins as well, because the wins that you have got in your games are also useful if you know what kind of mistakes your opponent made, and also for you to change a few things in your strategy when you play the same opponent or the same opening next time. And there is this game where your opponent has made mistakes clearly, but you can also see it from the other side. You have won the game, but you think, what if my opponent had played this strategy against me, casting on the queen side, going g4, where I should have changed if I were my opponent. If you look at it that way, then also it opens doors for new analysis, which I think you could consider doing. And the tip here is, maybe you can pick the position from this game itself. For example, here in this position after g4, I think this can be a very good exercise as a training game, because white is attacking and black has to find counter. So this is a good position for sparing. Like, you can put this position and train with your friend. You can set this position and invite your friend to play a game with you and see how he plays. Because just because you have won the game, don't consider as if whatever you had to learn from the game is over, because you can learn from your wins as well. This is what I also do. Even the winning games, I take them and I play it with my practice partners, friends, so that I can extract the maximum out of the experience and don't throw away the lessons that these games would contain. Alright, so that's Abhay, and I hope you have these tips with you now. You can consider taking a screenshot. Let's go to game number 6, and the game number 6 is Thibodeau 75. So he sent us this game. His name is Thibauf, and he was white. So let's look at his game. This is a Sicilian Taimanov, and in this position after a3, black played bishop e7, which is a mistake. Why? Why is bishop e7 a mistake? In this position, bishop into c3 is the correct move, and after knight c3, black should play d5 and should hope for a normal position like this. But in the game, after a3, he went bishop e7. Now I would like to ask the chat, how would you exploit this mistake? So I'm going to give a few seconds to the chat. Yes, let us talk about chess. We are here to talk about chess. Yeah, Prajwal was also right. Sandeep Maheshwari was also right. Avya Bhatt was also right. But yeah, what about this question? Do we have the answers? Bishop f4. Bishop f4, what if black plays e5? Udayar, I am Perumal, you are right. Knight d6, Madal, you are right. Knight d6 is important in this position, because if you don't play knight d6 here, then black will escape. For example, if you play bishop f4 in this position, black has e5, and the effect is not that much in comparison with knight d6. Knight d6 is like immediately checking the king. King f8 means there is no castling, no hope for castling, and bishop d6 means you play queen d6, and this pawn on d7 is very backward. It feels like as if air is like taken away from it. So d7 pawn, then the c8 bishop, they are all very unhappy with this kind of a position. So that is what he should have done. Thibodeau should have done. So Thibodeau, you did not do it, but you played bishop f4, which is an inaccuracy to an extent. So you should have played knight d6 check. But after bishop f4 castles, you had another chance in this position instead of playing e5. Maybe the chat could again take a guess as to what the chance was. Thank you, Yashas. I am glad that you are finding this worthy. Thanks for your compliments. This was another good chance for white, but he did not take advantage of this. Ajay Joshi is saying knight c7. Knight c7 is met by rook b8. Now remember, the rook is supported by the knight, so it's not really knight c7. Prajwal, yes, you are right. Bishop c7. Prajwal is right. Bishop c7 attacking the queen is the move, because after queen e8 there is knight d6, forcing black to take bishop d6, otherwise the queen is trapped. And then you can take with bishop, and then this rook is lost, and you can take it aram se. Whenever you want, you can take it. You can play bishop e2 castle and then take the rook. So this was just an immediate way to gain advantage in the opening, but he did not. He played e5. This is a mistake, because it not only throws away an advantage, but it's also giving chance to the opponent. So here his opponent played knight d8, now d6 or f6, both the breaks are coming. And remember, now it is white who has not developed the king side bishop yet. So he does knight d6, but he should have developed the piece, but knight d6. After this, knight d6, e d6, bishop f6, bishop d3. The position is balanced, because this pawn on d6 is only stopping the d7 pawn from moving, but that doesn't stop black from completing his development. He can play b6, bishop b7. But he took bishop c3, and this is also an interesting decision, but the one that I don't like. He went e5, bishop g3, but let's see what happened in the game. He went for this, and then queen c3, this is fine. Now this is the position, guys. This is white to move. What would you do as white? Very simple. The move is simple. You play queen f6, but after knight c6, this is the position in which you are supposed to find the best move. Shani Chan, you keep sending the games to us, but you know it's all about random generator. So we are not really doing any specific picking, not because we like a particular game or a name. Yeah, after queen f6, so this situation, I would like to know what you think. Yes, Yashas is pretty strong. He has found the move. It's bishop f4. That's correct. Threatening bishop h6 and queen g7 is a direct mate. E4 loses the queen, which is what Thibodeau should have played, but he did not. So after after rook b1, after rook e8, he played rook b3, queen d4, and then he went on to win the game. Like here, he exchanged the queens, but he should have simply played queen g5 to put more pressure. But you see, after all these inaccuracies, his opponent just played knight a5, forgetting that d8 square is no longer under control, and then he got the knight. Then after a few moves, he converted the game very well. Like there was no scope for black after that, but there were a lot of missed chances. So what are the tips I have for Thibodeau 75, whose name is Thibav? So Thibav, what are the tips I have for you? When your opponent makes an unusual move, see if you can take advantage of its drawback. So in your game, when you played a3, your opponent played bishop e7, the advantage you can take is knight d6 check. He did not play bishop c3, so you play knight d6 check and get that advantage. And of course, you must consider the checks, captures, threats and pawn breaks, because you did not play bishop f4 in the game. This game that I just mentioned with the chat, Yashash also mentioned that here there was a nice move, bishop f4. This is a threat. So when you are considering checks, there are no checks, good checks in this position. 1, 2, 3, 4, no good checks. Then captures, yes, bishop g6, bishop e5 or queen f7, nothing's working. But threat, under threat you must first look at the mating threats and then come to attack on queen or other pieces. So here this bishop f4 should have come in your mind, because this is a mating threat. And then of course pawn breaks, here they don't really matter, but generally this is the way to go forward. And then solve tactical positions and see the games on the topic of attack. I think for you, you want to attack, but sometimes you may fall short of pieces or the accuracy. So I would suggest that you study the games of Alekhine, because if you study the games of Alekhine, you can start with his best game collection, which he has himself annotated. All you have to do is sit with the book and just go through the games. You don't even have to do guessing. For now, just go through the games and see the kind of attacking positions he gets in the game and how he converts his advantage into a winning attack. So this I think you can adopt from Alexander Alekhine. And if you want to learn more about development, then of course Paul Morphy also comes into the picture. Alright, with that, let's go to the next game. So we have already covered 7 games. And Mayank is saying that there is some noise. Please let me know that you are also, if you all are hearing it, or is it just Mayank, because my room is completely sound. Like there is no noise. At least I cannot hear any. And let's go to the next game. This is game number 7 already. So the 7th game is Arya Gaikwad versus Ronak Sadhwani. So Arya sent us his game which he played against Ronak, and I was very happy to see this game. Then this is the Botvinnik system which Arya is playing. For those who are new to this, I think the system is the bishop comes to g2, pawn comes to d3, pawn comes to e3 or e4, and knight comes to e2. This is especially good against Dutch and some kind of Kid or Grunfeld, but not in all positions. I will tell you why. In this position, you can see that white has got this structure, but black has the square d4. Whereas you cannot really say about that for white, because white doesn't have knight d5, because e6 means the knight will always be kicked off. So this position I cannot say that it's advantageous, but it is a playable opening. You can play this at any level. I have played this with white and with black, and I've had good results with white. Knight e8, he wants to go knight c7, knight e6, very well played, and then in this position after f5, e6, he goes bishop h3. This is somewhat erratic. I would not play bishop h3 because this is a position in which fg6 has to be played and then develop the bishop to f4. Or you can also play something like h4 idea, bishop g5. So this is what he should have done, but Arya did not do that. He played bishop h3. This bishop is number one hanging, and it doesn't really good to put this bishop on h3 because it can be a victim of some tactical trick. So his opponent played e5, and after e5 he played knight d4, very strong move, and after knight d4 bishop d4. In this position, I think it's important to give this bishop some more space and play king h1 and not king g2, which was played in the game. Because after king g2, imagine a bishop comes here, this king has nowhere to go. It has to use knight for interposing the check. But if you play king h1, if the check comes, you can always bring back the bishop to g2. So these are some subtle things you should have worked on during this game. But after king g2, I think Ronak could have simply played b6 also, but d5 is also very nice. And after fg6, you see that the king is now coming to h3, which is very dangerous. And then in this position, he could have simply played bishop h6 to attack with tempo again. But he blundered here. He played bishop e3. I am going to ask the chat, why is bishop e3 a blunder? So why is bishop e3 a blunder? Yeah, Udayar is again right. Bishop e3 in d4. Yeah, so this is the move that was missed. Pranav is also correct. So this is the move he should have done, but I'm not sure why why he forgot about the idea. So bishop e3 was a blunder, but bishop h6 could have been better. After this, he lost a piece and the game. So this is nothing. I mean, after that there is no need to see. So what are the tips for Arya Gaikwad? Two kinds of moves. There are static and dynamic moves. You must be precise in You must be precise, and you have to practice calculating both types, and study the plans and motives ensuing in the openings you play, and blunder check. Because you see, if you had done a blunder check, you would not have played bishop e3. If you just ask, okay, what happens after that? Does he have anything later, or bishop e3, queen e3, is d4 coming? Any forking possibility? If such questions come, if you have this sense of danger, you will avoid making silly blunders like bishop e3. Now, what I mean by static and dynamic moves is, in this game, when this bishop h3 was played, I don't think it's necessary. This is a time to develop. So a dynamic move means you attack something, or you exchange something, or you put more pressure on a particular thing. And static move is one that improves your position slowly. Here it was not a time to play bishop h3 and support the pawn, but play fe6 or fg6 and go ahead with the development. And then in this position you had a choice to play king g2 or king h1. So this is a challenge about choice. So in this, when it comes in calculation, you can categorize this as a comparison problem, whether I should go for g2 or h1. So in this position you have to play king h1. So you have to notice these categories of mistakes that you do and work on them accordingly. And of course you must train CCTP and solve a lot of positions and do a blunder check. And if you are playing botwinic system, please try to see more games of botwinic system and know that when you must play f5, when bishop h3 works, when can you afford to play a move like that. Let's go to the next game. We have the 8th game already, and this is the first time that we are covering 8 games. So today is the 8th game. I still have some more games left. This is a game played by Shailesh Kumar, and he sent us this game. He was white, and we have this position now. Okay, all good. And in this position, after queen d2, knight g4, I would like to give this chance to the chat again. What would you like to play as white, chat? What's the best move for white? So I'm just waiting to see what the chat feels. So in this position, if you are considering, then you can also let me know the options. Some people might be saying bishop f4, some of you might be saying bishop g5, some of you might be saying h3. Aman Chaudhary is saying long castle. Yeah, possible. So okay, I'm going to reveal the answer now. In this position, yeah, Indian sniper is saying long or h3. This is an opening in which white goes for an attack, and this bishop is very useful when you want to create threats with bishop h6. So it doesn't make sense to give away this bishop. So you play bishop g5 here, or bishop f4 also is fine, but bishop g5 is even better. And then if you play the h6, you bring your bishop to h4. But it's important that you keep this bishop. But in the game, Shailesh Kumar played h3 and gave away the bishop, because after knight takes e3, you know, black is very happy, because that bishop, the danger is off, and then the double bishop advantage is with black. So after queen e3, he played knight c6, and then d5, knight b4. A few moves happened, and in this position, he played h5. I think h5 is not the best move objectively, but you can simply play knight d2 first, put f3 and then triple O and then maybe h5. But even for h5, this is a practical decision, and I'm okay with it, but it's not the best objective decision, so it's not really good. But let's see what happened in the game. After some moves, I reach a very critical, very nice moment. In this position, after rook g6, white had this opportunity to take the pawn, which he did not. The pawn on h5 was going for free, but he played knight h4, and opponent blundered here. Opponent had a very nice and simple way to play and win. Maybe the chat already knows. Just bishop g5 here, and then queen is lost. So before you play knight h4, ask yourself, can my opponent attack me in some way? This blunder check is something that has been the theme of the session today, you see. Because you don't notice what the opponent has for your move, you end up making that move. So in this position, after knight h4, bishop g5 is coming, so that is the drawback, because the knight loses the site of g5. But you know, he took bishop h4, giving away a golden chance, and then after rook h4, queen d7, again, this knight on c3 is not really doing anything. Bring back that piece. This is called the Mekagonos principle. Principle of Mekagonos is like you improve the position of your worst placed piece. The c3 knight is not really doing anything, so you bring that towards king side, which you should have done immediately, but you gave queen f3 check, push the king to safety, which is what you should not have done. And then after knight e2, king f7, knight g3. This position I have a question. What would you like to do as white? Would you play knight g3 or would you play something else? So let's see if the chat gets this move. This is a strong move and a good thing to learn, and it is part of CCTP. So what is the chat saying? The thoughts of knight g3. F4. Vardhan is correct. Vardhan, your answer is correct. Chess player queen h7 is not the best move because queen h7, rook h7, rook h7, there is rook g7. So there is no problem. F4 is the move. Because you have this pawn break, why not do it? Because CCDP, P is pawn break. You must go for pawn break and try to attack your opponent's king whenever you get a chance. This was that chance. You are also threatening F5, forcing him to play EF4. So this was a nice game, nice position. After F4, Queen E7, the game goes on, but F4 was a missed chance. He went Knight G3, King E8, and then after Knight F5, Black had Queen F7. But he went King D8. In this position, another puzzle for you guys, White to play and win. What would you play as White? Queen G6. Yeah, Yashas is correct. Queen G6 and then Rook H8 and then Rook H7. This would have won the game for Shailesh very easily, but he went Knight F5. So again, practice of CCTP has to be done. But he went Knight F5 and then after that he finally got it, but his opponent could have defended against it. So what are some of the tips I have for Shailesh Kumar? So this is game number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's take a look at the tips for Shailesh. You must know the goals of the pieces in the openings you play so that you know which piece is to be exchanged and which is not to be exchanged. Because you gave up your E3 bishop with H3, which is the piece is very vital to the opening you play. You should keep that bishop. Then after identifying the color complex, try to exploit it through threats and placements of pieces on those squares. What I mean is bring your knight from the king side from C3 to F5 as soon as possible. Once you know that F5, E6 is weak, try to play on those squares. And pawn breaks, the F4 pawn break which you did not do earlier, which helps in opening lines and in creating tension. They are useful especially while conducting an attack. As I mentioned, it's part of CCTP. And what I would recommend for you to read is Giants of Power Play by Neil MacDonald. That's a very good book. I think you will benefit a lot from reading it because that game can tell you all about attack and dynamics, which I feel you need right now in your game. Alright, let's go back to the game. Number 9. Game number 9, Naveen centers this game and he was black. So hi Naveen, I hope you are watching, and in this position he went for knight g5, but d5 was important. This is very common open Spanish. Knight c5 is what they usually do, but yeah, b5 and then this is fine, but knight g5 is a blunder. Now why is this not a good move? This move is slightly difficult to spot immediately, but I will tell you, in this position knight g5, white has d4, attacking this bishop, attacking this pawn on e5, and if you play knight takes f3, there is queen f3 which is threatening mate, and if you play something like queen f6 to defend against the mate, there is rook takes e5. You cannot take knight e5 because there is queen takes a8. So you see, this is very dangerous. Your opponent did not really see d4, but he went for knight takes e5, which has saved you a lot of pain, but you are now back into the game after your opponent returned the favor by playing a dubious move. You are back, and this was a mistake. Why? Because by playing queen h4, you are not really being clever. You are directly going for a threat, in this situation maybe playing bishop b7 first makes more sense. Why? You're not really telling your opponent that you want to play queen h4 now, but maybe next move. For example, after bishop b7, if opponent plays something like a3, then now queen h4, g3, queen h3 comes with a lot of pressure. So that is why they say threat is stronger than execution. So you must play bishop b7 first before deciding on where your queen wants to go. Because now you see that bishop b7 option is not there. Your opponent cleverly played queen f3 and stopped that. And now not rook a7, because rook b8 at least the rooks are connected. By playing rook a7 your pieces are lacking coordination. So this rook on a7 again has to make another move to come back into the game. He has to play rook 8 again and rook a8. Instead you can play rook b8 intending to go bishop b7 directly. But you know what happened in the game was not in your favor at all. Like after this, I saw that a lot of your pieces were not really coordinated. Now see the bishop on h6, not sure what its future lags. What holds the future? I mean, there is no scope for the bishop in the future as of now. Then this rook on a7 is very lonely. Nobody knows what it wants to do there. So this position, slowly White was able to improve and completely dominate the game. So your mistake was not one. The entire flow in the game, cost you a lot, because the way you played certain moves tells me that you need to improve your feeling for the piece placements. So what are the tips I have for you? Let's go to you, and this is the tip I have. These are the tips I have for you. And this is of Naveen Kedleya. Threat is stronger than execution. Don't reveal all your plans at once, because if you play queen h4 then you can't play bb7. So first bishop b7, then queen h4. Then coordination among the pieces is very important. Study the games of top players and try to understand why a particular piece is placed at a particular square. After going to a master game, take an individual look at each of the pieces to understand their journey and incorporate those ideas in your games. So I am specifically mentioning that you pay close attention to the master games, their pieces, why a particular piece is placed there, what is he doing to do next. So interact with the game that you are observing. Don't be a passive learner, be an active learner and see what the pieces are doing, because your pieces seem to be very randomly placed in the game. So, and then one more thing is, the pieces that are left on their own need cover. You need to take care of the pieces and make sure that they are not attacked, or if they are attacked there is no danger. Why I am saying this is because of this particular example here. In this game you got your queen to h4, but you see here after bishop e7 your queen is alone. It is like, imagine that there is a war going on and our agents are fighting. When this agent is going towards the other side, we need to give him the cover because he is a part of our team. So even if one of your pieces they go and attack somewhere, you need to give cover. In chess, cover means you look for possible threats. You look for possible ideas of your opponent, so that the knight, bishop, rook or queen doesn't get trapped. In this position, the queen on h3 is left alone, and now White can simply trap the queen with bishop f5, which is what opponent did not do. After bishop e7, he played bishop d3, but instead of playing bishop e7, if you had played f5, that would have been very good. But you played bishop e7, and now bishop f5 means the queen is trapped. Your opponent missed this, so did you. That's why I am saying, when your pieces go into your opponent's territory, take care of them. They are fighting for you. You must look for threats, give them cover. So I am using the army analogy here to help you understand why it's important to take care of your pieces. And the recommended reading here is Mastering Chess Strategy by Johan Helston. I think that book will give you a good idea of how to play with your pieces. Let's go with that to the next game. We have game number 9. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and now we have come to game number 10. This game was sent to us by Kaushal, and this is his game against Drumil Thakkar. And you see his opponent played d4, b5 and then e4, a6. Yeah, interesting opening. Bishop b7. What is the threat? e4 pawn, उसको बचाना है, you have to defend it, you have to play bishop d3, but you played bishop d2 Kaushal, which is what just gave a pawn for free. Opponent took the pawn, was very happy, and then a4, not really, but okay, still okay, the position is fine. Now the pawn is hanging, the pawn on b5 is for free, you could have taken that, but still never mind, the position is still okay. Now these are the moves after b4, bishop b6, you see this pawn on b4 and c3. One question arises, those two moves before c3, maybe you could have simply played bishop d3 and castles instead, that's the kind of question you must ask. Should I make those pawn moves that I made in the game? Not necessary, I think. And then you got back the pawn on b5, very good. And then I think we reach one critical moment. And then, yeah, in this position, after e d5, queen d5, knight c3, you can actually take this pawn. Queen d5 is correct, but after knight c3, you must find the only move that saves you. The bishop is attacked, the queen is attacked. How will you save yourself from danger? So this was a matter of thorough investigation. You should have checked all your options and then decided on the move. You played queen d3 and lost the piece, Kaushal, but you had a good chance to save yourself. You are welcome, Adokshaj Deshpande, you are welcome. Aditya Bakshi. Yes, I will definitely analyze them. Please send them in the link. We have a form and we will pick your games randomly, and if it's your turn, you are seeing that. So I am only picking the games from the entries that we have received. Let's come back. So in this position, white can play queen d4 and save the game because the knight is attacked. If the queen captures queen, then the knight captures the queen and defends the bishop. If the queen captures the bishop, then the queen captures the knight. So this was the saving move which you missed. But after that, can't really say much. You were a piece down. And then your opponent played queen c7 and blundered. You again could have utilized the opponent's mistake and played queen takes c7, because queen h4 is 1 rupee trap, just h5 and it's okay. But you could have simply played queen takes c7, knight takes c7, and these two knights are hanging, which means you play rook c1 and win one of the pieces. So after knight e6, you can simply take knight takes e6 and then take the knight. So this was again a missed opportunity to equalize in the game, but you played queen h4 and and then you'll miss that chance. And here, your opponent returned the favor by playing knight e5. He should have simply played f6 and he is very much in control. But then you got the piece back and now it's your time to win the game. You played queen d5, which is correct. Now you did not play knight e4, you could have played knight e6, for king. That was a way to continue, but yeah, after that I think you had a good game after that. So then you managed to win with 3 pawns up. A game with a lot of ups and downs, but I think you had your lessons also. So what are the tips I have for you? Let's look at that. Let's look at the tip for you. You must practice what is the threat. To put it in simple terms, WITT. This is very important because in your game I saw that you missed our opponent's threats. Also, you also missed how you could have created threats for your opponent. Then use this chess map technique when you are playing, because what I mean by chess map technique is you just take any position and see the function of the pieces, then maybe placement of the pieces, and then possible breaks in the position. This is not like some puzzle. Treat a position as if you are walking in the park, and when you are walking in the park, you are just walking and looking around. So just look at the map like you are looking at the atlas. You are not really considering facts here, but you are looking at how the shapes are, which country is where, and things like that. So that is what I want you to develop in your games that you are playing. that you are playing. So after that also, even in your studying some games of other players, try to use this technique. And what I would suggest that you watch my client's videos. I think it can be of great help to you. Let's go back. Let's go to the next game. We have the 11th game, which is of Ahmad versus P. Kumar. So P. Kumar, he sent us this game, and P. Kumar 444. So that's the username. He lost this game, but it says a lot of learning from this game. He played f6. Again, f7 pawn is a pawn you should not touch very often, and when you touch it, you have to be very careful. Again, you see too many pawn moves which should be avoided. Again, another pawn move which should be avoided. So you see, this game until now has only been about pawn moves, which is what I don't like. So please take care of that. So this is a record breaking number of pawn moves, and here knight d6 was falling for sure, but opponent did not take. The king is in the center, very bad position. After knight f6, gf6, white has mate in 2, and he did not spot it. I mean, it's very easy for the chat to spot, so I won't really ask. It's simply queen h5 check and mate, which his opponent could have done easily, but after rook e4, bishop e7, then he found this mate. So what are the tips I have for P. Kumar 444? Don't make too many pawn moves in the opening. Develop your pieces quickly. Prioritize pieces and castle as early as possible. 8 to 10 moves. Connect your rooks. No, 10 to 14 moves. That should be your limit. Try to connect your rooks, and then study games of polymorphy. Why I am suggesting polymorphy is because after you study the games of polymorphy, you will understand what's timing in chess. How important it is to get your pieces quickly. So once you know that, you will definitely stop making pawn moves. You will know that the moves are meant for pieces early in the opening stage, and you make pawn moves only when it's necessary. Alright, let's go to the next game, that is game number 12. We have Yash's game, and his game was picked, but his game link was not working. So finally he sent us this game, and this is the game he played against Woman FIDE Master. So if you are around Yashas, it's finally your turn. Yes, you can submit your responses. Pragyan is asking about a tournament in which you can win diamond membership. Yes, there is one tournament. It happens in our official chess club every Sunday at 8 p.m. Chess.com, India's official chess club. If you win that event, you by default get diamond membership. So that's a good tournament to play and win. Let's come to the game of Yashas. So Yashas played d4, knight f6, and f3, g6. He played the fianchetto variation of the King's Indian, and then after knight e7, he got his bishop to e3, which is fine. And I think this is a very nice moment to pause. What would you play as white? After black has played f5, you know that knight g5 is coming. It's a possible idea, but there is something better than this. Is there anything like that? So here queen b3 is interesting, because by queen b3 you are threatening c6, you are threatening queen b7, you are discouraging any kind of dc5 because of d6 check. Because now he cannot play a move like h6, because c6 is coming. It's coming by force. So you will get knight g5, definitely. But maybe before you play knight g5, maybe there was a better move. So apply the Lasker's law, that if you see a good move, look for a better one. So in this position, queen b3 was a straight way to claim slight edge, but you played knight g5, and then you give a chance to your opponent. Your opponent played fe4, which is not the best. Your opponent should have played f4 and continued the play on the king side. Because now if you play gf4, it's not something that you would like. After ef4, and then bishop c1, then h6, then ne6, takes, and now maybe dc5 also. So now the position is changing. This bishop feels very bad because of this pawn, and black stands better already. So fe4 was a mistake by your opponent, and after knight ce4, black should have played b6 at least, but black played knight f5, and then again queen b3 was coming, threatening the same thing, c6. If you play something like h6, you can play c6 again directly. So this queen b3 was very important in the game, which you completely missed. Because knight e6 is anyway coming. You are going to sit on e6 with your knight, but there was no need to hurry with it. That's my point. After bishop e6, d6, d5, you got a clear edge after bishop g5. So there were some errors from both sides, but eventually, you were able to see this combination, and at least after bishop g5, black should have played bishop f6, but after knight e7, black lost a pawn and then the game also. So what are the lessons I have for Yashas? What are the tips? So Yashas, I feel that you must know the difference between a normal move and a forced move. The distinction is necessary to understand. So knight g5 is not really forced. You can take your own time, first play queen b3 and then go for ng5. I would suggest that you study more games on Fiachero King's Indian, and since you are a very serious player, it seems, based on your opening repertoire, I feel that you must dedicate more time, but analyze and annotate your games. And then once you annotate them, it goes into your mind and sits in your subconscious and helps you when you are playing your next chess game. And then create a training plan, because I saw that you were able to play well in the opening stage. You developed the pieces well. So you are a more, you're not really a beginner, but you have a lot of scope for improvements. So I'm saying that you do a training plan, devote time for middle game, end game, and bit of opening theory as well. I will just paste a link which could help you, like a simple training plan, let's say, on how you can study chess, because it seems like you have time also to practice. So I would suggest that you study this link and maybe try to create a training plan and then practice chess, so that your game would be more, you would improve in balance level, like you pay more attention to all the aspects and not just stick to just playing games. So if you structure your study of chess and preparation, I think you will benefit a lot from it. Alright, so those were the games that I had prepared for today. Those were the games. We did 12 games today, and I hope you liked this stream. I had great fun checking the games and also preparing tips for the players. You can send your entries for episode 4 as well. The link to that is in the description. You must be able to find it. Yeah, Aditya, I hope that your turn also comes, and just this is the link for submitting it for the episode number 4. You can send there. Hi Vansh, I hope you are doing fine. Hi Kimai Virling, and Yashas, you are welcome. Aditya, I will try to analyze any game that comes in the number generator. It's a randomly picked series, so it's like we are just going with whatever comes randomly, so that everybody gets an equal chance. So that was episode 3 of YGOA, your game, our analysis. I hope you liked the stream, and I'll be back with another stream tomorrow. And before that, today evening, Rakesh Kulkarni will be doing the overview, the review of Scaling Open. He will bring his homework to you, and he will explain some games that took place yesterday night. And then tomorrow, I will be playing the Beth Harmon bots exactly at the same time, 1 p.m. So you can join me at that time. Until then, take care, have fun, practice chess. Bye bye.